Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of Rainer on Leadership, podcast for leadership in general, but particularly that of the local church. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and hockey season begins tomorrow, at least at the time of this recording. So there you go. Go Bolts.
I have nothing.
Speaking, we're going to be talking about indifference, and obviously,
Hey, there you
Josh,
go. I am completely indifferent on
is
hockey.
indifferent about that one.
Don't hate it, but don't care.
So why don't unchurched people attend church? We've done the research. Listen, listeners, we've done the research. Brand new research. We're going to bring it to you. Big national study that yours truly did. I'm kind of proud of it. We'll give you more on that here in just a moment. Want to thank our sponsor, though. We've got a great sponsor with Southern Seminary. If you're feeling the weight of leadership pressure, you're not alone, particularly if you are a pastor. Hey, they've got a new free ebook called Leadership in a Chaotic World. They've got all of their top faculty involved with this project. You want to go check it out. It's a practical guide from such greats as Dr. Andrew Walker, Dr. Justin Irving, Dr. Jeremy Pierre. Almost said that wrong. And they'll help you lead well in the face of ministry complexity and spiritual fatigue. So we've got a link in the show notes. Go check that out. And you can just go to sbts.edu if you want to learn more about all that Southern Seminary has to offer. They've got a great doctor ministry program. We'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. Thank you, Southern Seminary, for sponsoring today's episode. All right, Josh.
Yep.
It's not that people are too busy. It's not that people are too angry. They're not angry at you, and they are busy. But that's, they're not angry at you. That's what I'm trying to say. And they're not too busy. I'm too excited about this episode. They're not mad. They're not too busy. Those are the 2 points that I want to make.
Because that's often what people think.
Indifferent. Yes. Yeah. That's why we're bringing that up. Yeah. A lot of people think, well, they don't come to the church because they're angry, or they may have strong feelings about the church, or they're just doing all these travel sports and stuff like that. And, that's the case of some people, certainly. But that's not what the research shows.
Yeah, people think, oh, well, and you'll hear this internally. Some of the language is like, we need to soften our doctrines on certain issues because the outside world is angry at them, or we need to soften our approach to things. And the reality is just that's not the case. In fact, that may be like what this very small, like media type of version of what the church is and things like that might be in place. But I talk to people all the time who are not churched or who are post-churched. And I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a guy who has a different sexual ethic than most biblical Christians have. And I asked him about it. I said, he's attending our church. I said, does that irritate you or frustrate you when I speak on things that touch that topic? And he said, no, that's what you believe. That's what your church has always believed. He said, I would be shocked if you didn't. That would be very odd. That's what y'all believe and y'all are consistent with it. So I don't think I agree with you. I don't think it's the angry. The other thing that I would say just on the topic alone is I find the apathy thing to be also pretty prevalent within the church. People are not as, consistent. They're not serving as they once were because they just don't care. It's not something that matters.
Yeah, let's touch on the doctrine thing just real briefly because you are spot on. Do a poll of your own church. What are our main points of doctrine? What makes us Methodist? What makes us Presbyterian? What makes us Baptist? What makes us non-denom? Assemblies, whatever it is. Now, some of your people are going to know, certainly, but a whole slew of them will not. So the idea that the unchurched are like, their doctrine, I don't like. They don't even know your doctrine. They don't have a clue. So they may think that you have certain views on sexual ethics or other kind of widely known issues. But in terms of just the doctrine of the church, your own people don't know that, much less the unchurched. So they're not angry.
Which, by the way, teach your doctrines. Tell people about your doctrine. Teach them. That's what you should do.
I'll give you an amen. To that.
Right.
So they're not angry, and they're not too busy either. In all of the research that we've done, I guess the way I would say this is everyone's the same amount of busy, right? I mean, we all have lives, and those lives fill our days.
Yeah. the way that I kind of look at this is when you'll often hear somebody say like a 9 o'clock church service, that's early. And I'm like, wait, you go to school and work later than 9 o'clock? And they're always like, well, no. I said, well, you get up in time, you get around and ready for work. I think they go hand in hand. It's not that they're too busy, it's just that they don't care enough for this to matter. And so it works together, and it's helpful for us to understand that apathy is more at play here than angry. We're not trying to appease somebody. We're not trying to help somebody not be mad at us. In some ways, we're trying to look for opportunities in which to show them the gravity of what we do.
So if you want to get the nitty-gritty details of this research, we've got a link in the show notes. New surprising insights about the unchurched and how they really feel about you. So go check that out. It is an update of my dad's research, which he did for Surprising Insights of the Unchurched, a book he wrote 25 years ago. So there was this idea of, wow, we've been hearing this stuff, for 25 years about the unchurched. Well, it's a bit dated now. So we went and updated all of that data, and it's free. It's free. So if you're watching on YouTube, just go ahead and click the link, pull that up in another tab. If you're listening, just kind of make a note. If you're in your vehicle, please pull over to the side of the road. You don't need to have an accident on the account of my research. It's not that good. But yeah, just go click on that link and get that research. It is free. So we've got a lot of information in there. I would love for you to have it. So what do we do about this? So people aren't too busy. Everyone's busy. They're not too busy though, and they're not angry at you. So what do we do? Well, I think the first thing is, why we can't argue with indifference, right? If somebody is indifferent, you're not going to argue them out of their indifference. Indifference by design is, I don't care, right? I'm not knowledgeable, or I just don't know much about that. So I am a bit apathetic. So arguing with apathy, arguing with indifference is probably not the best way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think this does speak to something, if you're very religious, if you're a Christian, if you follow Jesus, it's very hard for us to even wrap our brains around the idea of how could you be apathetic toward your eternal soul? How could you be apathetic towards the Creator King? It's very hard for us to wrap our minds around that. But then yet, I think there's a little bit of moment here, especially for church leaders, if you're a preaching or a teaching sort of church leader, for you to examine whether or not you've been teaching or preaching things that matter. Or showing that this text, here's how the gospel matters. Here's how it's lived out. Here's how it's fleshed out in your life and in your work and in your school and in your play and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm completely with you. It's not that we need to argue the indifference. What I would say instead is, in your preaching and in your teaching, show why these things matter. Show why they are good. And I mean, like the way that you put it is to disrupt it with love and presence. And I think in a lot of ways we can talk a lot about like, hey, small groups are important, be in a small group, and that doesn't necessarily click. But when we are trying to disrupt something with love and presence, and we start talking into, look, there's an epidemic of loneliness. Some of the reasons you feel this way are because you're isolated. Here's what the gospel speaks into this: diverse people gathered together around the gospel of Jesus. And so that's why it matters. And it's very hard to be indifferent or apathetic towards your own loneliness. And so that's what we're speaking to here. It's not an argument. It's shining a light in their own soul.
Yeah, and I probably have the order of these mixed up. I would say presence, then love, right? So the first step is simply to be a part of someone's life. Go to the basketball games. You and I were just talking about that before this show about, sports is coming up for our kids and stuff like that, and about ready to get involved in all that stuff. Well, I have daughters that play sports. My sons are younger. They play too, but they're just little league stuff. But my daughters, they play basketball at the local Christian school. I'm going to start going to the boys' basketball games just because, the new coach that they've got, I really like him. I'm just going to be a presence there. I'm just, that's step one. Just show up. Now, that applies to your community. That applies to your neighbors. That applies to your coworkers. When you get invited to the party and you're like, I don't know if I want to go. Go. Be a presence. It's just show that you care. So I would say I probably have the order wrong in the show notes. Presence first, then love, because it's kind of, It's kind of weird to say you're going to love someone when you haven't been present in their life for a little while. This is kind of creepy.
And yet Christians have done that. We love them, but you're not involved in the world. So
you know what? We may be accidentally onto something here. I do think Christians and churches have done the "I love you" before the presence.
Yeah.
And it does come across as a little strange and a little weird.
Yeah. But it's not just that. And speaking of presence, one of the things that evolves from that presence are personal invitations. They are still, according to the research, still the number one reason people will attend a church. You'll see this all over the place. There's different percentages, but the reality is a very high number of people will attend the church, the worship service, the fall festival, the vacation Bible, whatever it is, if they're just simply invited by a friend.
But that's, by the way, this applies to the churched and the unchurched. Our data shows that. So why is anyone at a church? It's roughly 80%. You know, give or take some percentages there. Depends on when you count, how you count, who's counting, all that sort of stuff. But roughly 80% of people that are in a church that have like started showing up are there because of a personal invitation. And that
somebody they knew invited them.
Yep. It is still, after 25 years, and I'm just saying 25 because that's when the last big research project was done. It was probably even prior to that. You know, you're present in someone's life. You start showing them love, Christian love, and then you invite them to church. They are more inclined to be there, and that is why the vast majority of people are in a church. It's not the preaching. You and I were talking about that pre-show. It's sorry preachers, it's not your preaching. I hope you're a good preacher, and I hope your church enjoys it, and I'm sure that they do. That is not why people show up to church. It may be part of keeping them, but it's not part of reaching them.
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. I've often said that like in my area, the DFW Metroplex, there's really no reason most churches shouldn't double next year. If everybody just invites a handful of people, if you invite 10 people, statistically, 8 of them will show up. And if your church is just half good at keeping them, then 4 of them will stick around. I mean, so that's
it takes
overwhelming statistics. Yeah.
That's something else the research shows. It's not like it's not a 1-to-1 correlation on one invite, one person showing up. I hate to think of church spiritual matters in terms of like business concepts, but it is kind of like sales, right? And again, that's a really crude way of thinking about it because people aren't sales and people aren't projects. You should you should just care for your neighbors because you just care for your neighbors. But in terms of numbers, statistics, if you invite 100 people over the course of 2, 3, 4, 5 years of regularly inviting 100 people, approximately 80% of them will be receptive to showing up. That's actually what the data shows. But wow, I mean, that's a high percentage. If you were in sales, you'd be like, man, I'd be working 16 hours a day. Yeah. That kind of success rate. But it is a high success rate. But the problem is something like only like 2%, 3% of churchgoers ever invite someone in a given year. Like nobody's doing this. Nobody. And it's really sad.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we have just defaulted to, there's social media ads. The people will just kind of stop by if they want to go to church. And we have to move away from that.
So, relationship, that's what's important. It's not your programs that are going to bring people in. Your programs are important. We've talked about that on this show all the time, about rhythms and programs. And for us, it's Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights and how key that is for discipleship and even assimilation. But in terms of the unchurched showing up at your church, it's not typical for somebody who's unchurched just to go, they have name your favorite church program. For us, it's Upward Sports, right? And that's awesome. But the reason people are part of Upward is why? Because somebody invited them. It's not like there's this just mass sign up because you're doing it, right? You have to invite them. And groups like Upward really help you do that. And they do it very, very, very well. But they're not showing up just because of your programs. It's the relationship that begins the process.
Yeah, I think that the, Upward, Grief Share, these kind of things, what they do is they may attract people. There are people that will get online and search for a sports league for their kid, right? And this pops up and they're like, what's that? Oh, well, it's affordable. It's entry level. It's not competitive in the way that, maybe some other leagues are. And so they're attracted to that. Here's where churches really drop the ball is they don't actually think through the program itself as being relational. And so they don't train the coaches, they don't train the parents to say, this is an opportunity for you to meet these people and to love them and encourage them and bring them into your sphere. And when you don't do that, then it just becomes a sports league. And so you got to add that relational element into it. I think we have one last one, and this is probably key to combating this apathy, and that is prayer.
Prayer. Yeah. I mean, we could add that point every single episode, right? Pray about it, but really pray about it. I think the point here is intentionality. So direct your people when you have them, small groups, prayer meetings, Sunday mornings, whenever it is, direct your people with intentionality. I like to tell people we're going to pray together. I do a guided prayer. We're going to pray together. Get out your phones. Text the person that you are praying for while we're praying. So almost give people permission to be texting while we're praying. To me, that's very engaging. You're not just sitting there, pastor's droning on in a prayer and, okay, let me just work through my grocery list real quick in my brain, while he's praying. No, get people engaged. And the way that you get people engaged, the way that I do it is, hey, everyone pull out your phones. We're going to pray together. And I want you to pray for somebody. And as you're praying for them, I want you to text them and let them know that you are praying for them. So pray for spiritual openness, pray with intentionality, pray with certain tools and tactics that keep people engaged.
Yeah, not that we would need any proof that prayer works, but here recently in my life, I've seen just a number of situations where I have prayed specifically for God to open doors in certain directions, and it shows up. I've been recently praying that God would show up, or God would bring more neurodivergent people into our church. I just want our church to be welcoming and opening to that. Had a guy reach out. I started praying this on a Monday, had a guy reach out. He wanted to get lunch on Friday. We had lunch on Friday, and he's telling me hey, I'm thinking about coming to your church. My child has, a learning disability and thinks differently than the way that we think, and wondering if he'd be welcome. And so that's just God working that stuff out. And so prayer works, and it'll help a number of times in this situation. So those are some great ways to combat apathy.
When you pray for opportunities, God tends to give them. I've noticed that in my life as well. So, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. I want to thank our sponsor again, Southern Seminary. Click on the link in the show notes. Go get that free ebook. It's free. So we've got a free research project for you in the show notes from Church Answers. There's also a free ebook, Leadership in a Chaotic World. Great ebook. Go check out their DMIN program as well, all their programs. Some of you I know are interested in seminary. Well, guess what? Southern Seminary is where you need to go. And let me do one more thing, Josh. Let me just say this. So I've got a couple of spots open in our coaching group. So this is one-on-one coaching, 24/7 access. To me, if that interests you, some of you are like, nope, not a chance. I'd never want to be coached by Sam Rainer. But maybe there's a couple of you out there. It's our Platinum group. I would love to talk to you about that. We also do a big in-person event every year. There's a bunch of other stuff that come with the Platinum group. But we do have a couple of spots open. We keep it very limited, very small. It's me and my dad. We do about 12 to 15 clients each. But I do have a couple of spots open. So if that interests you, if you want to be a part of our Platinum group, email me at sam@churchanswers.com. sam@churchanswers.com. Would love to have you in the group.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is that you podcast. Also, wherever you social media, make sure that you're letting them know about the show. We would love to help them and connect with them, not only in podcast form, but also on YouTube. Either way, make sure that you're subscribed, and we will see you next time.